Not even 24 hours after we made our last video about the FIA, where we said if they can keep their heads down and not fire anyone then the sport will be okay, they decide to pull the trigger on yet another high-profile official. In recent interviews, Nicholas Tombazis has been saying that they aim to put forward a professional stewarding panel who can lead from experience and a degree of authority. However, firing one of the most experienced stewards that they have is certainly going to warrant a lot of scrutiny. Could it be for the right reasons though? As it would appear that there was more at play than just a simple FIA firing, and there are even hints that the steward in question was compromised. Want to know why Johnny Herbert being fired is such a big deal? Another day, another FIA firing, but this one is certainly worth looking into. And stick around because there is a big issue that the FIA are facing, and for as long as they keep firing experienced individuals, they may well be incapable of figuring it out. Just 1 week after it was announced that Johnny Herbert will be continuing his role as an experienced race steward, the FIA have released a statement announcing that the ex-F1 driver has been fired from the role. Having been fired from Sky Sports just a few years ago, the racer turned pundit turned steward just cannot seem to catch a break. The statement from the FIA remained fairly vague in regards to the exact instant that triggered his firing, but it certainly gave a strong hint, with it saying, "It is with regret that we announce today that Johnny Herbert will no longer fulfill the position of F1 driver steward for the FIA. Johnny is widely respected and brought invaluable experience and expertise to his role. However, after discussion, it was mutually agreed that his duties as an FIA steward and that of a media pundit were incompatible. We thank him for his service and wish him well in his future endeavors." And that second half is the key element. Herbert was still offering his services as a pundit when he wasn't working as a race steward, and that caused worries about him potentially stewarding races with an inherent bias and potentially having conflicts of interest. Now clearly the only difference between Herbert and the other stewards is the fact that he openly puts his opinions out into the world. However, his opinions have often made fans of Max Verstappen, as well as the driver himself, uncomfortable with his position of power through race weekends. He has often voiced opinions for right or wrong against Verstappen's driving style and intimidation tactics, and the fact that the lines between pundit and steward was blurred was clearly something that the FIA could no longer remain comfortable with. It's understandable that the FIA wouldn't be entirely comfortable, given just days after handing out a 20-second penalty, he claimed Verstappen had a horrible mindset to an outlet. But at the same time, Max was fully deserving of both the penalty and the criticism. It's clear the FIA would rather just keep two entities separate. However, Herbert isn't in agreement and believes that he is still capable of stewarding objectively while also making his opinions known. As he said, "I am Johnny Herbert the steward and the professional during race weekends, and Johnny Herbert a pundit at other times who expresses what he thinks. Everyone has an opinion. Martin Brundle has an opinion. Why can't I when I am not on the racetrack? The racetrack has been my world for 50 years. If I do not quite agree with what I see on the racetrack, I will say so. It's not just Max. I will criticize anyone if I feel it is warranted. Is there any bias? No, of course not. I was not the only one to think that Max was over the top in Mexico. Lando Norris and Zach Brown thought so too. When I do speak to people on a Monday or Tuesday, that is outside my stewarding responsibilities." The other thing to note is that Herbert was just as fast to praise Verstappen for his racing brilliance as he was to criticize him when he drove in a controversial fashion. So Herbert is the most recent dismissal by the FIA, coming just days after Nicholas Tombazis promised a more professional and streamlined approach to stewarding. And it does seem like the FIA are hemorrhaging the experienced members of stewarding personnel that would make it possible. Herbert was a 3-time race winner in F1 and raced in F1 for over a decade, but he was also an experienced WEC driver, having won Le Mans in 1991 driving the fan-favorite Mazda 787B. The loss of Herbert from the stewarding panel alone would set them back years experience-wise, but when you pair it with the very public and damaging breakup with Tim Mayer following the Mexico Grand Prix, it becomes clear that the FIA are on track to fail in their promise to deliver the experienced overview required to take stewarding forwards. The most worrying aspect of both Mayer and Herbert's dismissal is the lack of communication involved with them. In Mayer's case, his sacking was so sudden that it caught the drivers by surprise and was part of a deluge of dismissals by the governing body, including Niels Wittich and his replacement Janet Tan, and he was very outspoken on the sackings and how they reflect on the FIA. When reacting to the sacking of Janet Tan, he even claimed that the FIA are running out of people capable of doing the job. As he said, There aren't a lot of platinum-level FIA race directors, which is the FIA's highest-level certification. I'm one of them. It's a lot of work, and if you are doing the job right, you wake up every day with an ulcer thinking of the various things that you need to be thinking about. They're not doing themselves any favors. They are literally running out of people to do those jobs. This is an issue that seems to be reflected now in terms of the experienced race stewards that are available to oversee the race weekends. The likes of Meyer, even if not suited for trackside officiating for whatever reason, may well have been perfect for the remote stewarding system that Nicolas Tombazis announced was being implemented last week. Even if trackside stewarding still relied on volunteers with a variety of experience, the remote stewarding system could benefit massively from experienced individuals, as the oversight to ensure consistent stewarding would be best undertaken by those with plenty of experience, both on track as well as in the steward's room. What's more is Meyer called into question the professionalism of the governing body, as he revealed he was sacked due to the hurt ego of CEO Mohammed Ben Sulayem. When filing a right of review report on behalf of the Circuit of Americas last year following a track invasion-induced fine, Meyer seems to have labeled himself as public enemy number 1 for the head of the FIA, as he was sacked not long after. However, it's not enough that he was sacked for doing his job, he was sacked over text. For a federation that relies on volunteers, to fire by text somebody who has made a significant contribution does not speak well of the management of the federation. The official reason that will be given is that they felt there was a conflict of interest with the FIA, as I had led the right to review in my role as an organizer, but that is not why I was fired. Being an organizer is a role that I have fulfilled, benefiting the FIA for over 12 years. This isn't new. In spite of the matter being resolved quietly and amicably, he's still upset and decided to fire me. After 15 years of volunteering my time as a steward, a decade of teaching other stewards, and hundreds of hours volunteering in other roles, I got a text from one of his assistants. The ego that currently leads the FIA is a fragile one, and the fact that he cannot keep himself impartial when it comes to sporting issues, such as a simple response to a fine with a circuit pleading its innocence, should, if we are to go by the examples set by Herbert's sacking, render him incapable of continuing in the job. As funny as that may sound, it's becoming apparent that the head of the FIA cannot separate himself from his fragile emotions and the need of the sport. So how is that any different from a man being outspoken in his feelings while being expected to officiate on the sport? Clearly, this is a fairly extreme opinion, but the current track record that the FIA has in firing personnel in a last-minute and unexpected manner, sometimes just due to the fact that they don't like the person, is a dangerous and unprofessional precedent that has been set by the governing body, and especially by the man at the helm. The FIA needs to prove that they're capable of delivering their proposed stewarding system, as just a few days after it was announced, it already seems that they're in grave danger of falling short. One thing is for sure, if they manage not to fire anyone next week, that'd be a pretty good start. But what do you think? Is the sacking of Herbert deserved, or is this yet another blunder by the FIA? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.